We did that. I cannot believe we did that, but we did. Let's go.
Are you nervous? I'm nervous. Okay, we're on the way. What is the true moment?
It's up to you.
I'm gonna have a true moment with somebody. Yeah.
So I think it took us an hour to set everything up because we kept forgetting tripods and then we brought the wrong tripods, and as I'm sitting there in the middle of the horse waiting, just this anticipation and anxiety building and building inside of me. When we get done, I go to sit down, and for the next 20 minutes it's just an exercise in humiliation. And at the first, it was so hard to concentrate. I think even in the video, you can see my eyes just crazy going side to side. But I think I did pretty good job of like collecting myself, although it did take me 20 minutes. But the moment when I start just, breathing and concentrating on my breath and counting, like, 1 on inhale, 2 and exhale, how Headspace teaches us, I became very calm. But at first, it was just, I just wanted to start laughing, get up, and run away from there. And it's usually the same reaction I would have in therapy when, I stumble upon something painful or unusual that I didn't want to recognize. But then it was such an interesting thing to notice. So I'm sitting there, people passing by, they're like, what is she doing? Some people thought that I'm staring at the bottle. Like, they're like, why is she staring at the bottle? Because I had the big orange bottle of sanitizer. I'm like, yeah, next time I'm not doing that. So for the next 20 minutes, nobody approached us. And the first people who did was this group of teenagers with like skates or something. And they're like, hey. I'm like, oh my god, yeah, finally somebody come. They just came because I had this bottle of sanitizer and then wanted to use it. But it didn't work. And they're like, trying to push and nothing comes out. And I'm like, damn it, I cannot believe I did not check it. And I think I'm just sitting there turning red with every time they try to push it, just turn redder and redder. But yeah, they just do like, and they left. So the next people who approached, it was like this park police or something. And they're like, oh hey, like, what are you doing here? They're trying to talk to me, and I'm obviously just sitting there staring, in the middle of nowhere. And they take a picture, like they approach the table, they start reading, because I had this little paper with like explanation, contact points. If people did choose to sit down and wanted to share their feelings afterwards, and they take a picture of that. They step back, take a picture of like the set, and yeah, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my god, this must be like so cool. They're interested in that. What I'm doing here? No. So they step back. I think they're like 12 feet away, and I hear them talking on the radio, and they're like, yeah, it's this performance artist doing a piece, and I'm here like, oh my god, somebody called me performance artist. I'm so flattered. And they're like, they're not responsive. I'm like, oh my god, okay, I'm responsive to it. It's just like part of the performance. And while there's another person comes to me and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not responding. I just keep staring. So a couple minutes later they come back and they're like, yeah, it's okay, what are you doing here, but maybe next time set it up somewhere on the grass and like without blocking the passageway, because there are like people coming by like on bicycles and stuff. and they leave me alone while I was just kept staring in the middle of nowhere. And then there was this guy who, well, it was a family, they passed me by and then they came back, like the guy came back and he was like, can I participate in your project? And I'm not responding, and he's like, oh, I guess I'm participating just by asking you if I can participate in your project. I'm like, you're smart. But then he doesn't choose to sit down, or didn't, figure that he can read the paper and, see what's going on, and he leaves. I'm like, damn it, okay, fine. Then there was this other person who approached, and like she read the paper, and but she didn't choose to sit down. She was just like, oh, that's beautiful, and left. I'm like, so interesting. And then I keep sitting there, thinking, what am I doing? I'm so dumb, like nobody's gonna sit down. I started feeling uncomfortable again. And then a couple minutes later, this couple approaches. They read the paper and the guy goes, yes, I knew it. So he sits down, and at that very moment, just a wave of anxiety and like nervousness just hits me. I feel so uncomfortable that I cannot provide space for this person, concentrate. I just, got caught up in my own thoughts and in my own feelings. But I think it took me like a couple seconds before I was actually able to sit down and, to concentrate on this man. And it was amazing because he kept sitting there for a long while I'm in my thoughts thinking, when are you gonna stand up? And it's so interesting because why would I be thinking that? Like, I didn't feel safe, or like I didn't feel comfortable, although I was the one who started this performance. And as I'm talking about it right now, I'm thinking about like my personal relationship, which is interesting. But anyway, so he sits down for a good while, and then he does this and stands up, and that's amazing. And his girlfriend, who was standing like next to us this entire time, at some point she approached me and she was like, oh, can I take a picture? And I'm like, wow, I didn't even think about it, because I have this huge setup of 3 cameras pointing at you without asking for your consent, and you have no idea how I'm gonna be using that. But and in the meantime, you're asking me if you can take a picture. This was just a fascinating moment for me. And then once we were done, she's like, this is so cool, but I cannot do it. I cannot sit down with you. It's so challenging. I'm like, wow. After they left, I got really into it, and like I really wanted more and more experiences like this. And the next person, I think it was like 15 minutes after the next person actually came and sat down with me again. It was like this girl who sells the drinks in Dolores, and she was passing by like back and forth a couple times, and then she lifts her speaker, she approaches me and she's like, oh, can I ask you something? Like, are you okay? And then she reads the paper, she chooses to sit down, and I can see, like, really collects herself, like prepares herself to look at me. And then we started looking at each other. And at that moment, I started feeling powerful, like, I don't know, empowered, I don't know. And it was amazing, like I could hold space for that person for the longest while. I don't know, I was just like so comfortable and so concentrated on her. But then she didn't last for like more than 15 seconds. She just, looked at me, we like smiled at me, and then she was like, I can't, I need to go, I'm sorry. And she left me shell-shocked and left. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. And then that was it. I think like in the next 15 minutes, I just stood up and finished the performance. So as a conclusion, I want to say that I absolutely loved this experience. And now I want to do it not only again in Dolores, because the day when we did it, it was a couple days before the second lockdown, and there was like a quarter of the amount of people you would usually see in Dolores. And I think that affected how many people participated, and also the fact that we're in the middle of the pandemic, and the man who sat down, he didn't even pull the chair with his hands, he used his feet to like, you know, push it, and that was interesting. And I feel like this pandemic definitely, you know, grows a distance, grow a distance between people, which is, I guess, obvious. But I wonder if it's gonna stay, so I want to repeat the performance once again when the pandemic is over. But I'm also interested in doing it in different cities, like in different countries, you know, just in the middle of, I don't know, Red Square or somewhere near Louvre, or, you know, just like in crazy places, and just to see how people would be reacting. Because as I was sitting there, somebody passed by and they were like, oh yeah, totally normal day in San Francisco. I'm like, dude, believe me, this is not the most weird thing you would see in the city, and it's so interesting to me that it still, you know, freaks you out a little bit, although I wasn't really doing anything weird. But yeah, just the whole experience was an amazing exercise in self-observation and, I don't know, just cool social experience, which I would definitely want to repeat outside of the circumstances that we are all in now. On this note, stay safe and thank you.